just a little bit of background about myself. And so that way you can really just get an understanding of really where I come from, what are some of the things that I've done in my past, but also seeing that you can just get another side of me. Because what happens to a tree that does not have any roots? It doesn't grow. And until you understand my roots, until you understand what I'm from, I can't help you develop in certain areas that you're looking to develop in. So that's going to be my first stop. There you go. All right, there it is. So, as I said, for you to get an understanding about me, I love how Erica highlighted the 80s, and I love that. So now I'm about to bring you into the 90s. So we going in 1991, right? That's what I was doing.
Get closer. I appreciate it.
So for those of you like, you know what? He's got up here. He just said that. That's years ago. But yeah, you know, we're gonna stay right there just for a second. So the reason why I show this picture first is because for you to understand my connection to leadership development and my connection to this whole phenomenon we call HR, I have to always go back to my sister. So my sister is the one that's holding me in this picture. I'm approximately 2'3" Looks like I just got into some stuff, and she just pulled me out of it, and then my dad decided that it was going to be a great photo op, right? So in this picture, it really showed me a whole lot about how much we have to care for people when we put them out on the front line for leadership. There are so many different times where we as HR professionals are the ones that are calling the plays for the future, right? So if I'm an HR professional, I have to make sure not only you're going to be that person that I want you to be, but just in case you fail, I'm just like my sister and I'm going to catch you right there, okay? So as we go through this today, what I want you to do is I want you to adopt this idea of this winning strategy. So my presentation is Building Better Leaders, a Winning Strategy. I'm going to have a lot of sports references. Shout out to you for highlighting LeBron James earlier today. I just want to give you that. Best basketball player in the land, or on this side of the, well, on the other side at this point, of the United States. Championship chasing, I know, honestly. But I'm going to give you some tactics or some principles that you can use so that way you can also build yourself up or continue to build. But if you have that influence and if you have that ability to sow into somebody else, you're going to be able to use these principles to build them up as well. So that way, at the end of the day, we can get our wins. Because sometimes I feel like the idea of a win is given in a positive sense and also is given in a negative sense. You have some people that concentrate just on winning. If I don't win, I didn't succeed. Okay, I understand, totally get it, you know, because when you lose, there is some lessons that are learned there. But I also don't even use the word loss. I use the words wins pending, right? So there are some areas in my professional life that I'm like, okay, I know this is a situation that I've had. I know I've not quite grabbed it just yet. I'm not going to call it a loss because a loss is putting in my mind that it's already gone. What I'm trying to do is reframe myself and reframe my leaders to think, although you may have messed up on something, you can still bring that to this win category and get a win at the end of the day. And these strategies that I'm going to teach you today is really going to dive into that. So the first thing that I want you to do, and this is more so of an internal thing, and you can write this down, use your smartphones, your dumb phones, whatever you want to call them. You could go ahead and use them. I want you to just write down a couple of things. What defines a leader? Just think about it. Write some things down. What defines a leader? All right, let's come back together, team. So, when that question was presented, how many of you thought of a person individually? Or thought of a person who was doing this thing called leadership correctly? There are so many different times where we have this idea of leadership and we have this I want to say understanding of what it is, but sometimes we really don't get a full idea of it until we put a person's face to it. Because sometimes we often look at what's good leadership and what's bad leadership. This person does this, so we peg them as good. This person does that, we peg them as negative or positive. But what we have to do is we have to look at and challenge our own ideas of what leadership is. So therefore, as we're influencing others, or therefore as we're leading our own teams, we're not leading from a very slated or very biased idea of what leadership is supposed to be. Because at the end of the day, what we have to do is understand that oftentimes we're going to be at that front line. We're going to often be the ones that have to look at this path or look at this goal and then eventually lead our teams to it or inspire the next generation to do that. So what we have to do is understand how this idea of leadership is looked at. And I love Erica's presentation because it did just that, and it broke it all the way down to the pieces. So I ask you at this point, as we continue in this vein of looking at leadership and looking at different strategies we can use, I want you to take the default definition of what leadership is off for a second and allow me to give you some different things. So the play for today, where we going? First things first is I want to inspire you to find your strengths, and I want you to find areas of opportunity. We all know we have some things we need to work on. And I would be not telling the truth if I told you I was perfect. And I can tell you right now, the way my wife talks about it, well, I can't do some things right anyway, right? But what I want you to do is I don't want you to take my presentation and just like, you know what, I'm going to change the world overnight. I just want you to be inspired to just look at some stuff. The importance of self-evaluation is going to be so key, and I'm going to give you some things to do that. But I also want you to try something new, something you define it. I don't care if it's taking a class. I don't care if it's talking with other people, doing reverse mentorship, whatever it is. I want you to try something new that you have not done. But then even after you do that, I want you to commit to one thing. So many times we can have these great conferences and we get so much impact and so many seeds are planted. But then at the end of the day, we don't know what to do with all this stuff. And we're like, okay, now I'm overwhelmed. But what I want you to do as leaders and also HR professionals is take one thing and then figure out how can we use this one thing, water it just enough so that way it can spread and grow. Because the biggest impact that has ever been made always starts small. So if you're not in the area of starting small, you're like, you know what, I just want to take it by the horns, do what you need to do. But always take it small. I always say it's a cinch by the inch. If we're looking at those small pieces and we're focusing in on those individual pieces, that's going to be where we can make the most impact. But also we'll notice that's where some of the mistakes are made with leadership. It's those small things that we don't talk about. It are those small things that we ignore. It are those small things that when Sally says something off the wall in a meeting, we just say, oh, that's just Sally, but we never addressed it. So what I'm asking today is we look at one small thing we can do to change ourselves and also see how we can inspire our leaders.